miraculous. So, at the moment, we're all quarantine queens on the quarantine team. And I am learning more and more and more about myself, which always fascinates me. Introspection is something that I highly value. And at the very base of it all, the absolute importance for me to be in nature on a continual basis for my vibrational functionality. Today is a day where really feeling anguished and enraged by feelings of insecurity, feelings of rejection, and all-encompassing unworthiness. And it's been quite some time since I've felt this dense gravity and pull to these feelings and beliefs and ideologies that are attached to all of them. And it's interesting to see my natural inclination to want to mute it and turn it off and distract. And I've gotten to a point now, it seems, with the engineering of my body and my consciousness and my frequencies, that I can more easily step into awareness of what's happening and be compassionate in allowing that feeling to express itself, or belief or thought. So many things, just allowing an expression of these things so that there can be a movement, and the movement can move you through life into expansion, into more emptiness, and into more flow life experiences. I definitely have come to realize I'm an experientialist. I'm not sure if that's exactly the right word for that, but I learn through experiences. I viscerally experience things, and that means, in my perception, I tactily feel things. I feel energies. I feel emotions tactily. Sometimes, like, I'll enter a room and there'll be an encompassing energy of chaos, and then it's the assessment of what all of that is. And I'll feel a static electricity in one area, which would be someone's energy that's very electric. And that could mean a whole bunch of different things. There's colors and different shapes and whatnot. Just explaining how I experience life. This is fascinating. I thought that was normal. I thought everyone experienced life very viscerally, very texturally, very synesthetically, with colors and shapes. And I didn't realize that through that, though, I created stronger attachments to experiences in life. So I noticed that when I got to take a look at my life and see lots of different patterns repeating themselves and finding the root of where those patterns were coming from. Rejection is a ground one that I've been working on for years, actively for at least 9 to 10 years. And it stems from an experience I had when I was 8 years old. And that's a very dense baseline for rejection for me, and putting myself into situations where I felt rejected. And a lot of that is attached to conditioned love, and the experience of living life in conditioned love systems and interactions and connections. I've come to realize over the last year that the greatest thing that was evoked in me in regards to my father's suicide when I was 13 was unconditional love. What does that look like? What is unconditional love? I heard of it and I thought I was living in it until I realized I wasn't, because everything was conditioned. I will love you if, I will love you when, I will love you if you can, I will love you if you won't, and so on and so forth. So I created these deep well connections to a bed of a lot of anguish, because I wasn't living authentically to me. I was living authentically to all those around me, to keep them happy and to keep the love flowing towards me. Because if I didn't do certain things, then it would stop the love flow. And I'm having a realization right now, through just speaking. I like doing these mirroring meditations to really get to the root of some important experiences, to help untangle them and to unravel them and to release them and let them go and create new space and expand that empty space to bring in more unconditional love. Every time I let go and release conditioned love and expand the space, then more unconditional love comes to me. This is a visceral experience I have been playing with for years and am beginning to learn to master. But what is mastery? I realized that, checking into my energy, I experience my energy in a lot of different ways, but one way that I can paint really well is around me with frequencies and colors, and those frequencies have textures to them. And so I'll sit and I'll assess the spectrum of what's surrounding me and what all of that feels like, and nurturing it and exploring it. And as I got into deep meditation doing this, I realized that I had a lot of barriers to receiving more unconditional love for myself. And I didn't know why. Why? If I am on the journey to know what it is to love yourself unconditionally, what is it to love others unconditionally, what is it to love everything around you unconditionally, what is the experience of living this life with unconditional love and radiating unconditional love always in all of your interactions. So I felt those boundaries tactily, just caress them with my fingertips to get information of where the most effortless place would be to expand now. And so I expanded that area. And what happened when I expanded that area, what came back in was a flood of unconditional love that was unexpected, that now awakened me to a new light of more barriers I had put up to receiving infinite, abundant, unconditional love in my life. And as I assessed that, I felt like, wow, I didn't realize I had put up all of these barriers around me to receive more unconditional love. And that makes me feel vulnerable. Now, what happens when you feel vulnerable? Well, when I feel vulnerable, I go exploring. Because I want to explore what those vulnerabilities are. Because each time I go on that exploration, I come to find something I love about myself even more. Something that I love about this human experience even more. So, after I assessed those barriers, I again caressed the textures and the areas to find out where would be the next effortless space to expand in, to open up, to receive more waves of unconditional love into my life. Found it. Opened it up and put it out into the quantum field. Knowing and trusting that with that vibration from my heart going out, without painting pictures, without imagining what's going to happen, just releasing it and letting it go, but setting the intention. And I didn't realize what was coming at all, beyond imagination. It's so cool to step into what some people may say with English words, the matrix. Step into the matrix of creating your own life and seeing how it comes back to you. Playing and experimenting and exploring your consciousness and what this reality is and what this life is outside of fear and control and pain and sorrow and grief and complications, so many things. I've been calling in a great love. I have been calling in an expansive love, one that resembles one that looks just like mine. And I've been working real hard. Real hard. At first. Because I thought it had to be hard. I had been stepping into a space to express unconditional love for myself. Authentically. Loving every bit of me, even the parts that hurt me the most, made me the saddest, made me feel the most unworthy. Enduring horrific abuses to really truly understand what it's like to love yourself to the depths of my being. And now I had opened up to exploring what it would be like to live life with another that loved themselves as radically and as honestly and as purely and unconditionally. What would that look like? I want that. I would really like to try it at least. So I opened myself up to it. And the liquid light, so pure of unconditional love, poured within me. It touched every essence of my being, which is the essence of every being. And the frequencies that radiated from that moment of expression of honest feeling changed the frequencies on Earth forever, changed the frequencies in the galaxies forever, the infinite universe forever, within the human palaces we reside in forever. The frequencies would forever be changed because of a moment of opening up to more unconditional love and being vulnerable to work through what that looks like and what that is. So, I'm in love. I'm absolutely incandescently in love. I've never felt this love before in my life. And my heart sings with a great grace around this vibrational expression of unconditional love. Now here's where the vulnerability comes in, because the romance lasts for certain times, and then you learn a great lesson through experiencing life with another person, and that bringing up layers of yourself and of your journey that you hadn't expressed before, that you buried deeply underneath. Ooh, hello, little baby ran into my eyebrow. Thank you. Love nature. Um, hmm. And over the last couple of days, the feelings that I was mentioning at the beginning of this video, insecurity, rejection, and unworthiness, have uprisen, and I've seen myself in a whole new light and realized that each of my relationships that I had had before at an even greater depth of understanding were curated by me and my mindset and my perceptions of what was going on. And that is fascinating because I just wanted to feel absolutely unworthy of any love. Absolutely unworthy of any love. How could you be loved if your father killed themselves? You were not worthy enough to live for. How could you be worthy of love? So I tortured myself and each one of my partners to the point of crazy amounts of abuse because I was reflecting the amount of abuse I was torturing myself with, centered around loving myself with condition. Being out here in nature, as I began walking out into the middle of the desert to have the solitude and the quiet groundingness of this beautiful land, I was being surrounded by different birds, and the birds were leading me on the path that I was to take. And I had my headphones on and I was listening to a meditation, and all of a sudden I just heard this, I know this feeling, but it's familiar but unknown conceptually. And so I take my headphones out and I know it's a hummingbird, but it's a hummingbird I've never seen before. But I can hear texturally through the sound it is making that it is a hummingbird. At least that was my hope. And as I am searching with my ear and my eyes, I see this gorgeous, gorgeous hummingbird I've never seen before in my life. And when I first looked at it, it looked pure black, and its shapes were so pointed and edgy, and it was so strong and so fierce, and it was the sound of something so ethereal beyond this dimension, beyond dimensions of my ears experiencing anything of ever. And I just sat there in awe. And they did not like me. They were buzzing around, and I was paying attention to the motions that this beautiful being was making. The patterns of its sound, the patterns of its wings flapping, and the patterns of the movements from tree to tree that it was going to, and the shapes of the patterns of how it was moving around, and realizing how my brain works in my experience in life, and recognizing that there's a middle point to this shape that the hummingbird is making, with all of its sound surrounding me as well, with it moving, and that middle point must be what it's protecting. That middle point must be what it's protecting, and it has to vibrate something around it, some type of barrier around it, to get to the very center, to get to the very nectar of what's truly the most valuable, the most important, the most pure. What are you protecting? And I just felt so enraptured by all of these frequencies that this beautiful being was making, with that entire experience and all the colors and everything that were flying around me. And I realized that this bird was a representation to me at that moment in time of, let's say, barriers, something that I gate off, put a wall around to protect something in the middle. And with the feelings of insecurity, reject, and unworthiness, what is at the very center of that? What is at the very center of going through that experience, allowing those feelings to truly express themselves, to truly see where the memories and the attachments of those expressions are radiating from, and what is in the center of all that? The ego being oftentimes the frequencies of distraction around us to scare us off or to ward us off from entering into that sweet nectar. What is that sweet nectar? With my manipulated human experience in this moment in time, that sweet nectar for me is unconditional love. Unconditional love is that nectar in the center. And that beautiful hummingbird is always my guide. And every time I see that hummingbird, every time in my life, and every time I see the same pattern, it is my guide. I see the pattern of the frequencies coming again around unconditional love to open me up to even more unconditional love by freeing up more space from those past moments and experiences and feelings, allowing them to release themselves completely from me, seeing them and nurturing them, and coming again to drink into the nectar of unconditional love. I'm so elated and ecstatic that I walked into that intense feeling that I wanted so badly to run away from so many times, and it keeps happening with different things. But I'm so elated and ecstatic to step into opening up to more unconditional love. And what happens when I do that? And what happens when we all start doing a little bit more of that, and everyone else around us starts doing a little bit more of that? We are continually changing the frequencies of this world we live in, or the many worlds we live in. I love you all. Thank you for allowing me some space to express vulnerably. It is a beautiful art I love practicing. So if it evokes more expansion in me, then it is worth it. If it expresses more expansion and expeditions in others, beyond. I love you all. Continue to love yourselves compassionately through this quarantine as lots of things are coming to the surface. It's really important for us to step into those uncomfortable feelings and explore them, step into them, nurture them, love them, be compassionate with themselves, hold them and nurture them like you would nurture the person that you love the very most in this life, or how you wish someone would hold you. Hold yourself that way. Oh, love yourself unconditionally. It's so important. It will change your whole world and all the worlds around you. Everything that I create as a vibrational conduit is integrated into the frequencies of unconditional love and compassion, of unity and neutrality, and of universal unity. Ooh. May you live your life ecstatically. I love you.